So there's this new audio version of the Quran that's been released, and it's not just any audio version. We're talking a massive Hollywood-style production. Now, the goal they state is a noble one, to make the sacred text more accessible. But it's kicked up a serious debate about whether, in doing so, it's actually crossed a very important line. So let's get into it and break down exactly where art and scripture might be clashing here.
This is how the project sells itself. Not an audiobook, not a recitation, but a hyper-immersive experience. I mean, that is a bold claim, right? It sets you up for something that's supposed to be cinematic and super engaging. But for a lot of critics, that phrasing also raises the very first red flag.
Now, to be clear, nobody is really questioning the intention behind this. The idea of introducing more people to the Quran, that's widely seen as a noble cause. The real question, the one at the heart of this whole thing, is about the how. Does this big, cinematic Hollywood approach accidentally end up undermining the very sanctity of the text it's trying to share?
All right, so here's our roadmap for this explainer. We're going to look at the cinematic production itself. Then we'll dive into the controversy around voicing prophets. After that, the sound design for divine speech, which is a big one. We'll look at the clash between theatrical performance and sanctity, and then how the meaning itself might be getting changed. And finally, we'll talk about the core principle at the heart of this whole debate.
So what exactly makes this a cinematic experience? Well, the producers really went all out to deliver on that Hollywood promise. They used techniques you'd normally find in a summer blockbuster, not what you'd expect from a traditional religious recording.
And the scale here is just immense. Check this out. We're talking about a cast of 186 distinct characters, all voiced by 55 professional actors. The whole thing is mixed in Dolby surround sound, and it's layered with over 1,000 sound effects. This isn't just a reading, it's a full-blown audio drama.
And that massive scale immediately brings us to the first major point of controversy, the personification of prophets. See, to create a drama, you need characters. And in the Quran, that means having actors perform the roles of monumental figures like Moses, Abraham, and Jacob.
When the producer, David Williamson, was asked about this, he tried to draw a very fine line. He argued that the actors weren't playing the prophets or, saying, I am Moses. He says they were simply reading lines from a script. A very subtle distinction, but he feels it's an important one.
Right, but here's the thing. When you actually sit down and listen to the final product, that distinction he's trying to make, well, it starts to get really, really blurry. The performances are packed with emotion, with specific inflections, with character choices that seem to go way beyond just a simple reading.
For example, just listen to this clip. It's the actor who's voicing Prophet Jacob right after he learns about the loss of his son, Joseph. Now, can you hear that sorrow, that quiver in the voice, and honestly call it just reading lines? It sounds exactly like a performance, and that is precisely where the problem lies for so many people.
And this gets to the absolute core of the conflict. You see, there's a long-standing, very firm consensus among Islamic scholars that it is forbidden to personify prophets in any form, whether you can see them or just hear them. The big concern is that an actor's portrayal, no matter how talented they are, can never truly capture the character of a prophet, and it risks creating this flawed, human-defined image in the listener's mind. This idea of making specific creative choices builds directly into the next controversial area, the sound design. The producers didn't just stop at giving voices to human characters, they also made very specific artistic choices for how the voices of God and even Satan should sound to the listener.
And wow, the difference is just night and day. A traditional recitation is completely neutral. The focus is 100% on the divine words themselves. But in this cinematic version, God's speech is given a very distinct audio effect, a heavy reverb, and the actor delivers the lines in this very deliberate performative way. It totally shifts the focus from the words to the feel of the words. What's really fascinating here is that the producer himself actually admitted he had doubts about this choice. He said he was iffy about the reverb at first. Now that hesitation is very telling. It shows that even internally, there was an awareness that applying these kinds of Hollywood effects to divine speech was, well, it was stepping into some pretty problematic territory. So, all of this brings us to a really crucial question. Does all this theatricality, the emotional acting, the sound effects, the dramatic delivery, does it actually undermine the Quran's sanctity, even if that was never the intention? To defend their approach, the producers have a fatwa, that's an Islamic legal ruling, posted on their website. And they present this as kind of a stamp of approval, basically suggesting that their work is religiously permissible. But here's the twist. If you actually read that fatwa, a key condition just jumps right out at you. It explicitly says that the reading must be free from theatrical embellishment that could compromise the Quran's sanctity. So the very document they're using to justify their work sets a really clear boundary against what it looks like they're doing.
I mean, just take this scene from the story of Prophet Joseph, where the women cut their hands out of pure amazement. With all the dramatic gasps, the background chatter, and that heightened emotion, can this honestly be described as free from theatrical embellishment? The critique here is that the production basically fails to meet the standards of its own cited approval.
Okay, so up until now, we've mostly talked about style and presentation. But the most serious concern that critics have raised is that in some cases, these creative choices don't just add a little flair, they might be actively changing the interpretation and the meaning of the Quranic text itself.
This is where creative license can lead to some really significant misrepresentation. We're talking about moments in this audio drama where a scene is presented in a way that seems to contradict established, long-held interpretations of the text.
Here's a perfect example. There's a scene between Moses and his brother Aaron. In the audio drama, they include a sound effect of someone being dragged through the sand. The implication is that Moses is humiliating his brother. But textual scholars interpret this verse very differently. They see it as Moses pulling Aaron towards him, face to urgently demand an explanation. It's an act of urgency, not disgrace. So a simple sound effect completely changes the entire dynamic and the meaning of that interaction. And believe me, it doesn't stop there. The producer admits the text was reformatted. This meant that key phrases like, "and their Lord called onto them," were just removed, which really diminishes the weight of certain moments. And on top of that, they added sound effects for the unseen, things like birds chirping in paradise. The problem with that is that these are things that are meant to be beyond human comprehension. And trying to define them with sound creates a limited and, let's be honest, probably inaccurate mental picture for the listener.
So this all leads us to the final, central argument against a project like this. It's really a debate about where the power of the Quran truly lies. Is it in its unadorned, powerful words? Or is it in this elaborate, man-made world building?
And here's the crucial point. For 1400 years, the Quran's power has come from its recitation alone, from the words themselves. It has inspired millions, it has changed lives, it has guided entire civilizations without ever needing sound effects or a cast of Hollywood actors. The argument is that its spiritual power is inherent. It doesn't need to be enhanced. And all of this leaves us with one final, big question to think about. In the effort to make a sacred text more accessible or maybe more appealing to a modern audience, is there a real danger of stripping away the very reverence, the mystery, and the sanctity that makes it sacred in the first place?